All right. So today is the 10th of October, 2024. My name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We are called In the Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. And we talk about the skeletal system, right? I always say how the body isn't about the fat content, it's not about the muscle mass, it's about the skeletal system, because those first two things come and go. But the skeletal system is just the foundational structure of the body, and it's about a natural positioning the body has and just working out of that positioning in everything that we do. So we make bold claims because they are true. Okay, we speak on universal truths here at In the Image Clothing Company, and I always say we shouldn't have to stretch. And I speak out of experience. The point is, the body was designed a certain way, right? Let me word this correct. The body was designed to be what the body is. We came into this world, and through the world, worldly things and clothing, because clothing is the only thing placed physically directly on our bodies at all times. It's the only thing that has the potential to and does physically alter our bodies if it's imbalanced or if it's unnatural, okay? So I say that we shouldn't have to stretch because, well, I'm speaking out of experience, and this wasn't something I used to be able to say because I used to try to stretch to get to normal, never got there in those times. But now, knowing what I know about where the clothing needs to sit on the body and what it does to the body, we don't have to stretch unless something very major happens, right? We recognize our individuality. If you do have something that sets you apart, these things might apply a little bit differently, but that's okay because we are individuals, right? Surgeries, deformities, amputations, things along those lines, that's fine. We address those things if and when, right? But I also say we shouldn't have to work out or exercise to get up to a certain capability level because of the same thing. Like, we were designed to work. We were designed to do what we were supposed to do, and the body should do that unless it's being restricted. So, yes. I've had a few prerequisites just to allow that to happen, right? We go into more in depth here at In the Image Clothing Company, but the baseline prerequisites just to allow the body to have a chance to function are these. I've had them since before I even founded In the Image Clothing Company, okay? I'll wait for a second for the audio. So firstly, lace your shoes with what is now In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, okay? Because all that technique does, including just tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside, all that technique does is just allow the shoe that you're wearing within that design's capability to just fit on your foot like a glove would on the hand, right? Just like the ideal glove, just allowing the hand to do what it would do without restriction. That's what the lacing technique allows the shoe to be shaped like around your foot. And then pairing that lacing with just removing the tags from within the tongues of your shoes or anywhere inside of them up through the entirety of all the clothing that you ever wear, all of it, okay? And I've made videos on most all of the tags. I used to say each and every one of the tags, but then I realized if people are placing tags within their designs in places that I haven't actually gone over, well, the tags are doing the same thing, meaning just altering the body wherever they're placed. But I've made a lot of videos on at least the most commonly placed ones in 2024 and what they're doing to the universal human design, because they cause uneven gaps, and they are made out of synthetic materials most always, and they really do affect the body's natural workings big time, okay? So you can go find within In the Image Clothing Company videos that I've personally made on those tags, and there's reasons behind why these are my prerequisites, right? We do always try our absolute best, being sinful humans, right, to speak on universal truths. So this video is going to be another video in my fairly new series called The Truth Behind. So far I've gone over the deadlift, push versus pull, the squat, the pull-up, and the balls of the feet, right? Those are each their own individual videos, somewhere around a half hour in length for each of them, right? I go into very great depth as I word, right? I word it that way. I think it's funny, but I just realized it sounds kind of funny, but I do. I go into very great depth on each and every one of those things within those videos, as I will do here and describe and discuss the actual truth behind these things that we hear, right? And in this video here, I'm going to talk about the core, having an active core, keeping your core activated, right? I'm going to talk about the truth behind it, why it's not something that should have to be conscious. I always say that we shouldn't tell our bodies what to do because we can't. You can try to tell your body what to do all you want, or I could, all I wanted, and then have fun with, foam rollers and stretching routines. That's what I always say, right? Or we just leave our bodies in, or get them back to how they were designed to work in that natural state, and then they'll just do what they do. I kind of relate us to animals often, where I say you don't see an animal stretching, like holding a stretch position for 30 seconds and then like a different position. An animal, after it's slept, sometimes gets up and stretches out for like a good 3 seconds and then goes on with their life, but we shouldn't have to stretch our bodies for it to do what it was designed to do, okay? And that's what I'm going to get into with this, with the core, because we shouldn't have to train our core to do what the muscles within there are designed to do. They should just be allowed to do it to the best of what they would do within our own situation, right? I mean, that's really how it is. Right meaning right. I'm not asking right. I say that sometimes. No, I mean, that's how it is, right? Universal truths, and I go into it in depth. I'm not just claiming things. You'll see. So, within In The Image Clothing Company's clothing, when that does come available, as of today's date being, I said at the beginning, I'll say it again at the end, right? But as of today's date, our clothing is not available. We don't have clothing as of today's date to be purchased, but depending on when you're seeing this, we might. And so within all of our designs ever at In The Image Clothing Company, we will incorporate, behind the intention of our designs, clothing sitting here, okay, where I'm going to say, because this is what the universal human design needs. As I said at the beginning, all it's about is the skeletal system, and it just has to be able to do the only thing that it does. I made an entire video one time called "The Body Only Has One Position." It's like what I was mentioning at the beginning. We just work out of this natural, activated, neutrally stacked position, okay? So pants need to sit entirely above the hips, very slightly higher in the front than in the rear, and then the shoulder seams that are on the tops of the shoulders need to sit behind that little bone that's on the top. They need to be behind the shoulders, and then the seams at the edges should ideally just stay right at the very edges, okay? That's how the human body is going to just be allowed to work. We shouldn't have to get it to do something, we just need to allow it to do what it was designed to do. That's how the body really works. And that's just not the approach that most people, including I, for most of my life, up until I started to know these things and then founded In The Image Clothing Company, that's not the approach that most people have, right? Most people think we need to get our bodies to do something, but no, we just need to allow them to do their thing, and they'll do it within our own situations, within our own capabilities, right? The body will just do its thing. So, and it really, really will, okay? I'm gonna get into that. So, the point is, within sports or anything really, especially in sports though, people emphasize core. Keep your core active and, stay in an active position, they'll say. Or just throughout life, people want abs, right? The muscles here, your abdominal muscles, like a 6-pack or 8-pack, whatever you want to call it, right? You've got your obliques that come into here that really aid in rotations. There's always a big emphasis on keeping an activated core. Well, if your pant waistline, just the waistline alone, is sitting, even if it's even, right? Because look how I was standing before I went even if it's even, but especially if it's any farther down in the front than the rear, you or I or he or she, meaning just any and every human, could train their core as much as they possibly wanted, and wearing pants sitting that way, they would never get a strong core, even a naturally functioning core. Never. It just couldn't happen because your pants are pulling your pelvis from this tucked position, like I say, right? Pants higher in the front than the rear, just to allow that position to happen, right? If the pants are at all, even if they're even, but if they're at all farther down, you can't fight a waistband. I say this all the time, and we can't fight our clothing. There's no way. I mean, I couldn't win that fight in that case, or him or her. It doesn't matter, because since it's placed directly on your hips, it's just changing the rotations, right? Because a natural neutral stance, right, as I've talked about in many videos that I've made for In The Image Clothing Company, is this, right? Good nails on your toes to allow for that gripped arch on the outside of the feet to be there, okay? A naturally slight bend up the legs with internal rotation stemming from that gripped arch to internal, right? I mean, it kind of looks like this, like internal, right? Gripping. And then once you get all the way up the legs with that natural outward bow traveling, I did a video one time called Natural Foot and Ankle Health. You can go check that out if you'd like to. Once you get to the hips, that internal rotation will actually posteriorly tuck the pelvis, right? This is anterior, this is posterior. Now look at the core. In an anterior, the core opens and deactivates. In a posterior tuck, the core can close in a good way, contract and activate the core, okay? So, and then traveling up from there, right? There's just kind of a neutral bend, slight bend, because everything stays stacked in the body, living on a globe with gravity, right? We're pulled straight down. We need to be even this way, this way, this way, and this way. And so this like nice, slightly, I don't know, just like, I don't want to put a word on it necessarily, but just like this natural position where everything's just on top of each other, but, right, everything bends a little bit because the knees bend in, the hips are then in their natural position, and then the spine has its natural curvatures. So there's like a slight bending, but everything's just like on top of everything else, right? Because that bending is there so that activation can happen, right? Slight bending here, slight bending here, so those hamstrings can be active. Yeah, right? The bends allow for the muscles to be constantly active, because I've said this before, where the way the body's going to use the least amount of energy is when all of the muscles are activated, right? Because if you want to like relax into a couch, you're actually deactivating your muscles, and that's weakening them. Because it takes, I've said before too, I did a video titled How Rest Weakens the Body, and I talked about how the standing is a restful state, because like what I just said, any position the body's in, meaning its only position, like that other video I mentioned at the beginning, the body only has one position. If it stays in its functioning position, that's when it's going to use the least amount of energy and exertion to operate, because that's the position it was designed to work in. And so we do want our muscles constantly activated, okay, turned on and activated, because that way you don't have to adjust anything to do something. You're already just in a natural working position, and from there you just do what you need to do with everything already like turned on. So having an activated core, I don't want to say this as far as like saying the rest of the video isn't important, because I'm going to go into in depth, but I could just stop at saying that the body has its one natural working position. And it's like what I said within the video, the truth behind the balls of the feet, where it's no different to stand on the balls of your feet during like sports than it is what I'm doing right now, or than it is sleeping, or than it is in a complete deep low squat. You're in the same position because naturally you would be on the balls of your feet. Just like here, naturally your core should always be activated. that doesn't mean that you have to be an athlete or that you have to work out to have some kind of like visual muscle here. But all muscle does is operate the skeletal system. So in order to keep your body in its position, that core has to be activated, right? It's no different. It's not like you should try to activate it to do things. It just should be working. Because if your core isn't activated, then it's just not even working. And now you're using your back or your shoulders or your traps to try to hold your body up when your core is not even, the muscles aren't even like doing anything. And muscles should always be turned on, right? You don't have to work out for that, but they just, if they're in their position to do their thing, they'll just do their thing, right? That's it. So that's why the pants just have to sit where they do. And that's, like I said, I mean, I could just stop there, really. Yeah, because the shoelacing technique then allows those gripped arches to be there. That's another thing, because if your pants are where they should be, that's great. If the tag's out of the rear so that it's not slipping up your pants into that anterior position, that's great. If you have tags out from where they potentially are in front of your hip flexors, so your hip flexors can activate evenly, well, that's great. I did a video one time called Naturally Functioning Hip Flexors. You can go check that out if you'd like to. I just showed how we should have natural hip flexor strength. It's not something, like I say, the body should just do its thing. We shouldn't have to train it to do its natural function. I mean, we should just have natural strength there. Like, I don't work out as of now. Like, it's been, I don't know, I can't say like an exact amount of months, but I don't know, 8 months maybe since I've done like a workout routine. Like, I mean, the body should just do what it's designed to do. So the core just needs to be able to be there. The point is, even if these things within the waistband are in their correct position, but your shoes are laced in a way that isn't in the Image Clothing Company's technique, then those natural arches can't accommodate for the position that your hips have to be in for your core to activate, right? Because the body works as a whole. So even if you're trying to focus on activating your core during something, if your shoes are pinning your arches flat and your legs are in external rotation, your core can't activate until your legs get into a posterior tuck and internal rotation, because the muscles within the core, the way muscles insert, it's the same thing I'm saying through this entire video. The body only does what it does. It only works how it works. And the hips have to be open for the core to activate. And for the hips to be open, as long as you have feet, and if you don't, that's okay. But what I'm saying is your arches have to be able to roll out and grip and activate. Because if my arches were collapsed, there's no way I could open my hips. Everything's just cramping and binding, and my quads are activating. I've gone over so many times, the quads really do so little. The quads do such little, right? People are going to the gym and training their quads to get huge, big old quads, but they're just in a very poor position. But an active, internally rotated position is the outsides of the feet. And in order to have that core be able to activate, that has to be able to happen down there as well. That's your foundation. So, same thing though with up here, right? The shoulder seams, if they are at all even on top of your shoulders, but especially if they're in front of them, right? The point is they have to sit behind the shoulders. I've just gone over that so many times. A specific video you can watch that I've made was called Shoulder Seams Must Sit Behind Shoulders, right? Because if your shoulder seams, as a mower, are sitting behind your shoulders, now you can actually go, meaning be in your natural position of that posterior tuck, of that active core, right? I made another video the other day called shoulders naturally sit behind the body. I think something very similar to that title, because the shoulders aren't in line with you, because that would deactivate your core. Your shoulders have to be where they would naturally be, behind like your ear, for example, and then your core can just activate. So I'm not trying to cut this prematurely, and I'm not, because that's all I need to discuss, right? I mean, I could go into it as deep as I could personally go into it, but that's all I need to say, because it's not about within a specific exercise or anything. It's just that it's a natural position, and then the body does everything from there. But it can't even possibly be allowed to happen, again, in my own body or any other human's body, if clothing placed on us is not allowing it to happen. We just cannot fight clothing. You cannot, right? I've just gone over this all in such great depth that there's no chance. There's no chance. I mean, we speak on universal truths. So yeah, I mean, just this natural position, the core should always be activated, and you don't need to train that. You just need to allow it to happen. And most all modern clothing doesn't allow that to happen without some sort of modification. So we do have a lot of modifications that I've personally made videos about. You can go find, it takes nothing but a pair of scissors for each and every one of those that I've posted up until today's date, right? Like I said, our clothing will always incorporate things to just allow the body to work, at least within the intention behind our designs. That's the whole point of us making clothing at all. So we will never have any kind of tags protruding from the insides. Everything that we ever produce will be made out of 100% natural materials to mesh with the natural body. I'm aware there's a mower, but that's okay. We do also have In the Image Clothing Company podcast that I love. We just go into discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ within the podcast, and you can go check that out. It'll be more places than just video form, right? Just where you find your podcasts, right? You can go find that. Yeah. So, just as I said with these other videos in this series, the truth behind, there is no difference going into an exercise or like playing a sport with what your core would be doing. Your body just does what it does, and then it goes through life. No matter what activity you're taking part in or what you're doing, what position you're in, your body just has to do the only thing that it actually does, and it has to be allowed to through clothing. Okay, I mean that's like period and done is what I say a lot of times. Like, that's it. There's no dispute. There's no way around that. There's no other thing to do. And in fact, training your core will, I've said this so many times with other things, it will actually deeper ingrain an incorrect patterning within your body. If your clothing isn't allowing your body to do its natural thing, the more you try to train your core out of a bad positioning, you're deeper ingraining, something your body doesn't even do. So, yeah. Like I said, today is the 10th of October, 2024. My name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. So much more than just a clothing company. Go check us out. You can just find us on the internet, any and everywhere that you could find us. So yeah, that's the truth behind core activation. Thank you. And I could go into it in depth more, but I would just kind of be discussing what the body's doing in certain positions, and you don't really necessarily need to know the anatomy. What you need to know is just how to allow the body to do what the anatomy would be doing in a natural function by itself without having to like tell it what to do, because we can't do that anyway, right? The only way the only reason there's a need to explain anything is so that you can have an understanding of it, or so that living in a modern 2024 or man-made world with all of these things that are altering our bodies, right? Like a radius within the hand. I mean, you have a flat hand from using flat things within the world. That changes the position of your pelvis as well. I made a video on how the body loves radius. Things like that, where we don't need to know the anatomy of the body, we just need to let it do its natural thing. But it's just because we are so out of touch with how the body would naturally work that we almost need to be told how to allow our bodies to do what they would naturally do. That's really all it is. So anyway, that's the truth behind the core activation. Okay, thank you. Oh, it didn't stop. And the reason I didn't try it again is because I feel myself kind of rushing out of this. And I don't know if it's just because I feel weird about the noise or what, because I mean, when I'm saying I can go into it, I was kind of envisioning like sitting on the ground and doing some like core things and positions, and that's, I mean, I can, maybe I will, I don't know. I mean, I don't want this to have to be more than it needs to be, because you only need to know what you need to know, but at the same time, like, I'm not sure exactly what else I would need to say, because I mean, the body just needs to be allowed to do its thing. I mean, touch some gross plasticky gloves, acrylic gloves, and now it's still in my hands. But yeah, I mean, tags within the rear of shirts, though, the same thing, right? This natural position, that's going to get altered by the tag that's placed in the rear of your collar, and that's going to alter your hips as well. Yeah, I mean, keeping the core activated, it just would do its thing naturally, right? I mean, if I were to be like, I mean, it doesn't even matter. It's funny because this video is so like relaxed, because yeah, I mean, I could discuss the entire anatomy of how to allow the body to do that, but I don't know if it's necessary, like, because it just needs to be able to tuck, right? The core. You're never going to activate a muscle. It's like trying to activate your bicep while having your arm completely straight, and like, you can't. You have to get into its range of motion, and then it can really activate. Because the core, like I'm saying, if the pelvis is anterior, things in the front pockets, and the other things I mentioned, right? Or like a belt loop on the rear, pulling the pants up in the rear, it's the same thing. Whether it's from the front going down or the back coming up, it's the same thing. No matter what, if your pelvis is anterior, or even like, yeah, from down there, like I was mentioning as well, it's like having your elbow completely extended, trying to activate your bicep, because the range of motion here starts like when that muscle is allowed to start doing something, and then it goes even tighter from there, right? This has to be like at least here, and then it goes tighter from there. Like doing a curl, like at the very, you know, I mean, you just have to be in the position the body's going to work in, because when the pelvis is anterior, it's actually just stretching out these muscles. And now if you're trying to like in the video I did on the truth versus the push versus pull, I was discussing a bench press and how people will be doing bench presses with their lumbar spine like arched, right? And now your core is completely deactivated, and in this position, no matter how much you want to try to like squeeze your core to try to contract it in this position, that's just not a position it even works in. It has to be here, because not only that, but the core works in conjunction with the hamstrings. And so when your pelvis is anterior and your lumbar spine curves excessive, your hamstrings deactivate, and the musculature changes from posterior to anterior, the activation of the muscles, because just of the way the muscles insert into your pelvis, just like how the core inserts into where it does, and like it just, there's only a position that it does what it does in, and it has to be there. Because I've talked about this before too, how the posterior chain, posterior meaning rear of the body, right? Anterior meaning front. And I went over just a minute ago how we shouldn't be having the front of our bodies do that much, because they don't do that much. One of my favorite videos I've ever made up until today is the push versus pull within this series, right? The truth behind push versus pull. I love that video. You can go check that out, like I said. But I was talking about how, yeah, the posterior chain's where all the activation is, right? The calves, the hamstrings, the glutes. That's where all the strength really is within the body. But then, like, once you get to the hips, it kind of transfers, and now it's here in the core. It doesn't really just like keep going up your back activation wise, because of what I was saying at the beginning of this video, where there is that slight like bend naturally, because that's how things are going to stay, well, like I'm saying, contracted, right? If there's that slight bend in the knees naturally, always when you're doing anything, there needs to be, is the point. Because your hamstrings, like I was showing here, yeah, I mean, it's the same exact thing. Your bicep can't really activate if your arm's completely straight. I mean, it's kind of, you're gonna feel it in your elbow joint here. It's gonna kind of like hurt. You know, I mean, it has to be in a position where there's leverage to, I'm not trying to like flex and show off, but like where there's leverage to work. Same with the core. Like, look at the position I'm standing in. We want to be, every time I say this, I say hear it correct, please, because don't hurt yourself coming from a poor foundation, and then trying to round. But with an open posterior internally rotated position of here traveling down and the arches traveling up, then you really, naturally, there really is a slight rounding in the back. Again, that has to be heard correct, and you have to be coming from a good, proper foundation, but that's true. I always talk about how I've got a little bit of a problem with specialists. I have a video titled that, right? The problem with specialists. I mean, because we have to look at the body as a whole, because it works as a whole, and we have to be coming from its foundational, natural workings, and most people just aren't, as again, I wasn't for so many years. It's not an accusation, but it's just the truth. Because really, most people are standing like this with their like legs pretty straight. They'll feel a lot of like activation in here, which is so just not how the body actually works at all. It's just that people are in that position because of patternings through clothing and other worldly things, but things that I've gone over in depth in my videos for In The Image Clothing Company. Again, right, universal truths. But the point is, a gripped arch, the activation is more like kind of on the outside rather than on the like inside, because, you know, collapsed arches, external rotation, active arches, internal rotation, it just completely changes the activation, right? So the point being, that slight bend, you need to have a slight bend in the knees. Look at my knees, right? Because then that core can tuck, and then you've got, like I was saying, like that slight like curvature to the body activated, right? Because you don't want to be coming from like a straight leg position and then trying to activate your core, because that's going to just, you know, you have the activation now in an incorrect position, being the quads, because your legs are pretty straight, which really just means that your arches are collapsed. That's why people are standing like this and then trying to activate that core. It's like things can't do what they don't do. That's it, right? So active feet, natural bend in the knees, and then the activation's here, right? The glute medius, and then the adductors, but in the correct way, not like down here between like, you know, like this, but the adductors in a way that's like really gripping inward, right? When I was in that push versus pull video, I was showing how like, just how gripped, because I actually showed like the horse stance. I don't do it, I don't really know exactly how it's done necessarily, but I was discussing how this is actually a pulling position, because stemming from the arches in the feet, even though you're wide, you might think you're pushing, you're pulling. And that's kind of the same thing. When you push like this, the activation's more like here, but in that same position, but doing it correct, the activation's pulling. And so it's actually out here and up into these inner adductors and the hamstrings, right? Calves and outsides of the feet. Now look at my core, rather than like pushing, anterior, pulling, core. And so, I mean, a lot of this is similar to what I said within that video, the truth behind the push versus pull, because, and that's why I said that the body is set up and designed to pull, and the body really doesn't push. Go check out that video. Again, I love that video. You don't have to, but I love that video. A lot of very good information in that video, seriously. But that's why I was saying that within that video, because again, the core should just be active. That's really the only way the body actually works, is if it's like center is turned on and activated, right? And that's because if it's not, then your body's just not even operating. Like, you're kind of like forcing it through life, but you shouldn't ever try to like activate your core. It should just be active. It should just be turned on because it would naturally be. And it really has nothing to do, I know I've said it, but I want to hit it hard, has nothing to do with the amount of fat content you have. Nothing to do with that. I made a video one time called how obesity affects body, how clothing affects obesity. Because the only way that like fat percentage would change the activation of your core is, I mean, like really is, because if you have more like fat around your stomach area, pressing your waistband down, now it's just changing the angle that your waistband's sitting. It's not about the fat that is on top of the muscle that you have, because it's not about the muscle either. It's about the skeletal system's position, but having that there, what that's going to do is then just alter the position of your clothing that we can't fight, right? So that's, I mean, it doesn't matter what your body like is shaped like, because the skeletal system just has to operate. That's it, right? That's it. It just has its functions and it has to do them because that's all that it does. So, it doesn't matter that you don't need to work out to get an active core. No, you do not. And I can speak for, I say this all the time, like I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what your body doesn't do, and I can tell you how to allow your body to do what it does do, because there is just a universal human design. And it's about the skeletal structure in internal rotation and a neutral position on the same earth with gravity. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, so again, it's probably pretty apparent. I know what I'm talking about. And the reason I say that, because I don't need people to like give me credit, but I need people to hear truth. Because so many people are just hearing all the time that they have to go to the gym to get an active core. But no, that's actually going to damage your body, universal truth, if you're doing it in a position that isn't already just natural. If you're going to the gym in your gym shoes, collapsing your arches, with tags in the rear of your pants, wearing synthetic stretchy clothing, I'll talk about stretchy clothing within this as well, and then you're trying to do like core workouts from like here, well, you're going to damage your body. I, in those cases, would be damaging my body. The body only works where it's set up to work, right? I always talk about how I don't use the word posture, because that's essentially telling your body what to do, trying to get it to stand with whatever phrase people want to say to hold certain parts of your body into. That's just telling your body what to do. No, We cannot do that. Not I, nor he or she, meaning any and all humans ever. We cannot tell our body that we didn't design how to do a function. We can only just allow it to do its functions. So having a core active is something that's going to be extremely, it's almost just not even going to happen within stretchy clothing. Because I've gone over it so many times before, within nature, you're basically never going to find anything stretchy. I always say, like, somebody might tell me, like, on the coast of blank over in this place, you find this plant that has some stretch. I don't care. I mean, like, is your body going to be encountering very commonly, or like if ever, just like stretchy things if you were to just be in nature? And especially, well, the answer is no, but then you're not going to fully encapsulate your body in something stretchy naturally unless it was a man-made material that they try to pass off as clothing, right? It's just not. I mean, because your body needs to be able to predict what's going on, because the way that I say to get us back to natural is like out of modesty, right? Imagine being entirely like without clothing. How would your body operate? And how do we get it as close to that as we can while still wearing clothing, right? And being modest. That's natural. And that's the only way the body actually works, right? Meaning, again, right, I'm not asking. I mean, that's correct. So if there's ever a time when you put stretchy clothing on, there's times when I've worn stretchy clothing. The body can't predict it. Like, I reach right now, and this 100% cotton shirt is pretty predictable because there's very, 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 very little to no stretch. And the stretch that is there, if any, is just like a natural, like if I were to stretch this leaf, it would stretch like until it's going to break, you know? I mean, like, things like have the amount of give that they have, but there shouldn't be like stretch, because that deactivates you, because your body just like doesn't know what to do. And so the reason I turn my hands out and like fall is because that natural internal rotation that I've been discussing, stemming from those gripped arches, will go to external rotation. And if you're in external rotation, your pelvis being the center vertically of your body determines that. And that's what I've been saying through this entire video. A posterior tuck is what allows internal rotation, which is what your body would naturally be operating out of always, to just be there. But if your pelvis goes anterior, because you stretch within clothing, the clothing that you're wearing stretches with you inside of it, then you'll be in external rotation. So yes, I mean, again, I can discuss this and discuss it and discuss it. It is universal truth. I do know what I'm talking about better than most specialists, and it's not about me, but it's just, it is, I really do. Like, it's apparent, right? I mean, I just want people to believe what I'm saying, not me, but the truth that I'm speaking on. People just are living in pain and misery because if your core isn't activated, right? Not like an active athlete, but just turned on, naturally working to allow your body to do anything, meaning like have a chance to even do anything, then your entire body is going to be suffering. So that's why I want to hit it. That's why I say I know what I'm talking about, because you can trust the truth that I'm saying, not because I'm saying it, right? It's over here. That's what I say, like, truth is apart from us, meaning all of us equal sinful humans, but it is true, and it does not change, right? So, yeah. Because you see me sometimes, like, moving and, like, doing things in certain videos. I get a little bit, like, active to, like, show things. Within that push versus pull video, you see a lot of that. And for that to be allowed to happen, there's just a natural position. No matter gender, height, or all the other things that I said, it does not matter. It's the skeletal system of the body. So, yeah, having an active core is something that should never not be there. And that's why also I discuss when we sleep. I've done a video called How Sleep Affects Body Mechanics, and then that other video I mentioned how rest weakens the body. When we need to be sleeping. Oh, I also did a video titled "Toddlers Are the Natural Example," because we don't put pillows under our babies' heads, because thinking about standing with good posture, right, with an active core, if you put a pillow under there, it's taking your pelvis anterior. And so now you're sleeping, you know, 6 to 10 hours a night, whatever it is. You can sleep as long as you want or as little as you want, but the entire time you're sleeping with your core deactivated. And that's why I say your core should just be constantly activated, because it has to be to even do what it is designed to do, being the center, well, really your pelvis, but I mean, that's your core of your entire body. It has to just stay constantly activated. And that's why also I have that video titled "The Human Body Doesn't Sit in Chairs," because anything anywhere near a 90-degree bend at the knee and the hip, and it can be slightly off, right, but anywhere around there, the core can't activate, especially when you're sitting on the muscle, being the hamstring, that grips to allow the core to activate. Sitting on that muscle will deactivate your hamstring, and again, taking your pelvis anterior, right? Rather than active hamstring, allowing that internal rotation, traveling up and traveling kind of like down in a sense, right? I mean, just all over the body. So yeah, again, I know what I'm talking about. I don't like to say that because I'm not trying to prove it, but like, I want people to hear truth, because we only get one body in this life. I mean, this is our body, this is our vessel, and it doesn't matter if you don't even have legs, or if you don't have whatever, like, or if your body looks so different, it doesn't matter. But with what you do have, we need to do all that we can to allow it to be what it is. The key word being allow. We don't have to get it to do anything, because we just can't tell it what to do. So yeah, I mean, it hits me. I want people to see the truth of the body, right? Yeah, an active core is something that just you will always have, as long as your body is not being restricted, and that's it. Okay. Yeah, I made a video one time called "There is a Lot to Internal Rotation." Talked about that, because again, the only way you're going to activate your core is internal rotation. External rotation, the things I've discussed, right? So I've got a lot of stuff you can check out, and please do, not for me, but for your body's sake. And by I've got a lot of stuff to check out, what I mean is I founded this company, In The Image Clothing Company. That is the entire goal of anything that we're doing, like within clothing at In The Image Clothing Company, is to allow the body to work. Okay, so shoot, man, it hits me. Part of it is like, I don't know how deep to go because I can keep discussing it, and part of it is I don't want to try to sound like a know-it-all, right? And so that's like, it puts me in a bind, because to give more information is going to help, but in giving more information, then I kind of sound like I just spouting out all this knowledge that I'm so smart. I mean, yeah, I know a lot about the body, but I don't want that to come across like that. So like, you know what I mean? Yeah, anyway, I mean, same thing, anything in the front pockets, look what my legs do when there's a gap here versus not, right? Active hamstrings and glutes and core puts your legs here. Now those quads are doing what they would naturally be doing is very, 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 very little, okay? But if you put things in your front pockets, causing a gap there, it's going to just change the activation to your quads. And so now you think that you need to train your quads. Oh, yeah, see, there's so much to say. If there's a heel on your shoe, like I said, right, if you weren't wearing anything out of modesty, but just looking at the body as it would work with nothing possibly restricting it physically on it, you would never have something elevating your feet from your heels at all times. I mean, you might step on something that could have your heel be higher than your foot, like the forefoot, but you wouldn't, because your heel is just like a stick. That's why you have the rest of your foot. It's a lever, right? So having a heel on your shoe And that can mean just having the heel any higher than the toes, or like the, the ball of the foot, the forefoot, right? It doesn't have to be like heels, like we would think of 3-inch to 6-inch heels. No, it can be like a 1/4 inch higher in the rear. It's going to change the activation, shortening your calves, then again, putting the emphasis on the anterior into the quads, taking the pelvis anterior, or I mean, yes. And then, yeah. Like there's so much to it, right? So you just have to allow your body to do its thing. That's it. That's it. I mean, that's it. That's it. It's so humbling because, I mean, you see how my body works and you see where I am right now. I've had 2 full open heart surgeries and a pacemaker surgery and a couple other heart surgeries, a big incision across here. I went to physical therapy for my knee pain and my shoulder pain, back like 5-ish years ago. Like maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, somewhere around there. Like I've come from a place of being in other people's experiences, like to a degree. We are all individuals, but I've been in, things that are so similar to what other people have experienced, to where that's why I say the things that I say as bold as I do, and that's why I kind of just get like humbled like this through what I'm saying, because this information that I've been given for my own use is insane in the most beautiful way. Like, and so I want it to be heard. I want people to know that what they're being told by doctors is almost always untrue. Right? Again, meaning right, meaning correct. Like, yes. So, I mean, because, I mean, I kind of dreamed to be able to do this kind of stuff in the past. I used to do flips, right? I used to do parkour all the time. Websters and side flips and gainers and back flips and all the, front flips. Like, I mean, I would do parkour as a teenager, and my body was just, I never seemed like I could get it to do what I wanted it to do, but it wasn't about me wanting it to do something. It was like, I could feel that it had more it could do, and for some reason I couldn't like unlock it. It's kind of how it felt. Well, it's because I was within clothing that wasn't allowing it to just be what it would be. So it's that simple. We minimize here, we simplify, we take things away to get back to what we've been given by our God that we did not design. Everything we add is unnatural. And to a degree, that's okay. Meaning, as long as we're trying our best to be within natural materials, putting clothing on is totally fine to protect us from the elements, to keep us modest, but it has to be just intentional. We need to try the best that we can to just allow our bodies to do what they do without restricting them, ideally at all, but just to the least that we can, okay? So, anyway, it's just very, 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 very humbling. So, the core, because that's the thing, is the core is your body's function, right? I mean, like I'm saying, your hips are the center of everything, and your core here is the only thing that's going to allow anything from there up to work, and the only way to allow this to work correct at all has to stem from the bottom, right? I mean, the core is the body. The core is the body's function, but it has to be posterior. It has to have the ability to do what it would do, and that's it. And that's it. So that's it. Yes, I mean, same thing though, just with anything altering the pelvis, right? If you do have a thick belt, train all you want, and then go put a thick belt on made of like leather that, closes your hips down. Doesn't matter how much you train your core in the gym. If you go outside of the gym and change out of those like gym clothes that are probably synthetic stretchy material anyway, that's altering your body, and then go put on like a thick belt or pants that then sit here, or things into your pockets again, it doesn't matter how much you've trained within the gym, that all immediately gets completely just wiped once you put your body into a position through clothing, now outside of that gym exercise that was probably incorrect anyway, that is altering your body. Okay, again, the truth behind, that's why this series is called what it is. It's not called, I mentioned this within the truth behind the pull-up. This series is not called how to do, it's just called the truth behind. Because like I said, there's no how to activate your core. It's just let it, and that's it, okay? I mean, this is a 55-minute video so far, so yeah, I mean, I can get into this. I can get into it and into it and into it. Truth, like undisputed universal truth here at In The Image Clothing Company, okay? I just want that to be so clear because of the things like I say, right, with like the collar seam. I have a video called the dreaded collar seam. I love to point that out as one of these things because the modification that I make within there, I say it's 1 to 2 millimeters, 2 millimeters at very most with a pair of scissors. It's like a 1 millimeter cut within that collar seam. You can find within that video the modification to just allow it to be pretty well normal, pretty well. It's still an uneven seam that's not on the other side. But the point is, something that small, a 1 millimeter cut, if people are just in their preconceived ideas about thinking they have to go to the gym to get fixed, but really just 1 millimeter of a cut with a pair of scissors in the clothing they already own could change their entire life, that's why I'm so bold. Because this is truth, undisputed, universal, unchanging, across all humans. This is how it is. And I can say all I want, but it's, again, it's apart from me. So that's, I mean, that's why I hit this stuff so hard. Yeah. All right. Yeah, the gospel of Jesus Christ. Check out In The Image Clothing Company podcast, because as I've said many times, that's going to be, already is, and will probably stay forever my most enjoyed thing. Or at least, you know, one of the most enjoyed things of me being the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. It's one of my enjoyed parts of it, most enjoyed. We just discussed the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it just humbles me because, again, we don't have to do things. We just have to stop restricting the thing that will do its own thing, being our bodies, right? So anyway, I do want to thank you if you have watched it this far. I want to thank you for, yeah, I just want to thank you because it's just truth. It is what it is, and that's how it is, okay? And I don't get to decide it, I don't get to change it, but it is what it is. So the core, there you go. The truth behind core activation, right? A naturally activated core. I mean, like when I relate humans to animals, it's the same thing. I mean, an animal's not gonna sit there and try to like intentionally do things or movements or positions to like train a part of its body. It should just do what it does. We're no different, okay? In that way. So thank you. Again, my name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. So much more than just a clothing company. Today's the 10th of October, 2024. Check us out if you'd like to know truth that is actual truth, because truth does not change. Well, that's what we do here. To the best of our abilities is just stay centered on unchanging truths, okay? The only time there's ever truth is if it is unchanging, because truth is truth. Just like the second episode of our podcast, that's what it was titled. It's unchanging. I mean, something can't be true at one time and then not later. It doesn't change. So I've got a lot of videos. I mean, I have a video titled How Socks Affect Body Mechanics. That can affect your core. I mean, everything. But then even your hand position from using the things that we have in modern 2024. I have a video titled The Natural Working Hand. I have a video titled The Pinky Finger Affects the Entire Body. Yeah, I have a video titled The Natural Wrist. I mean, because same thing, if your wrist is in a position that's not neutral and natural, coming straight out from the pinky, which is actually the end of your arm, then your pelvis, even though it's cleared out down here, right? your pelvis can't be in its natural position if your hands are altered. If anything in the body is not working correct, something else and many things have to compensate just to allow us to keep continuing to try to be normal human beings on a globe that is pulling us straight down. And like I said, I mean, things happen, times and places. Just because your body's different doesn't mean like there's a problem, like as far as like something to worry about. But we just, you know, then we just address those things out of that position that you're in your own specific case, and that's fine. So yeah, the core, the truth behind the core. You know, because, you know, I mean, that's your center. That's the center of you. It's right here. I mean, anything you're ever going to do, I don't condone fighting, but I do fanboy over martial artists, as I say all the time, because they're so in tune with the way their body works. The core, I mean, it's your core. It's like, I mean, it's like an apple. The core is where the seeds are. The seeds are what caused the apple to grow. I mean, the core, this is the center of you. And it just should do what people are trying to like train it to do. It should already just be allowed to do that. All right. Because the more that you train your quads, you're actually training a muscle that is going against your core. Because your hamstrings and your glutes work in conjunction with your core. Like I said, I mean, it comes up, the activation naturally comes up and kind of like transfers to the front here, right? Not front meaning pecs, because front meaning rotator cuff and scapulas. But, again, gravity. Right? Kind of snakes, the activation. Back here, here, here. I mean, that's where you're activated naturally. That's where you work naturally, right? So emphasis on, I mean, I'm gonna cut this, not because like any reason other than I'm like almost too humbled to even like say more. It's like I don't know how to explain that, because I mean, in all my times of working out, like years back, spending so much time just lifting a weight up and down and whatever it was that I was trying to do to get my body to work, in those times, any of them, my body never worked the way that it does now, as well as it does now. And like I said, I haven't done a workout I could not even tell you the last time that I did. Because our bodies are designed to do just the only thing they do. So yeah. All right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, sleep without a pillow, because then your core can stay activated through the night, right? Or else it can't, because your spine is all connected from the base of your skull through your cervical spine, through your thoracic spine, and then through your lumbar spine. It's all one thing. As I'm saying with the whole body kind of snaking, I talk about this all the time, but the spine naturally has a very slight snake through it, right? Meaning the spine's all one thing, and if the head is being pushed forward, the whole spine has to allow it to. I mean, just sleep without a pillow to allow your body to stay here rather than here. Okay. Please, if you can, try to not sit in. I mean, yes, I always mention the angles being somewhere close to 90 degrees here and here, but even if you're at a different position, I mean, the point is just don't put like pressure on a muscle, because then it can't contract. I mean, you try to like use your bicep while you have like a tourniquet around it, meaning just something really tight around it. your muscle can't contract, meaning activate. That's what's happening with your hamstring when you're sitting in a chair. It can't grip. Within the the truth behind the push versus pull video, the camera was on the same tree. I sat right here in the grass and I showed when you're sitting on the ground, your hamstrings, because your heels are on the ground, your heels can pull, activating your hamstrings, activating your core, okay? But when you're sitting in a chair, the things that I've discussed within here apply to where your hamstrings can't activate then. So, yeah, again, yeah, I'm so in love with like places on the earth that are just so natural still. I've talked about this all the time, and yes, we have a lot of privileges and freedoms in certain ways here in the United States of America, but we're so very far out of touch with truth that people are living in hell the more that they acquire. So it's just kind of strange. Really, getting rid of things, taking things away, that's how we're going to allow our bodies to just work. That's how we're going to allow the core to just activate. Because when I stand, my thumbs are pointing backwards, internally rotated, emphasizing that core tucking. A lot of people will stand kind of like not knowing what to do. I'm not judging anybody, but that's how I was for so long. The point is, I can see what's going on in people's bodies by things that aren't like, I don't have to like do a muscle test on them. Like I can look at somebody from over there and see what within their clothing is causing, like in this video for this sake, like their core to deactivate, right? And so it's sad. That's why I'm talking about it. It's like, because then people are just doing so much more to try to get their body to work when we just need to do less. Again, no opinion in that. That's how it is. So, yeah. All right. Oh, man. All right, I'm gonna cut it. Thank you. Yeah, In The Image Clothing Company. Check us out. I'm the founder, Evan Strong. Thank you.